One day, in a low-key ancient village, there was a sloppy artist who loved painting in black and white. He often slacked off and didn't finish his work, which would drive the village elders up the wall. The villagers thought he was overpaid for his simple work, and some even said he should be kicked out of the village. One day, the artist created a painting that was over the top. Some people loved it, but others didn't understand it because they took it out of context. As the debate grew, one elder warned the villagers to watch out for jumping to conclusions too quickly. The artist finally figured out that maybe his work would be better off with a little color, so he grabbed some new paints and added a splash of color to his black and white world. A clear-cut situation arose in a bustling town where a hyped new cafe was opening. The owner, known for being a bit attention-seeking, promised crystal-clear service with no gray areas about what customers could expect. However, on opening day, things didn't go as planned. The fancy coffee machine was fiddly, causing delays that held up the line. One customer tried to catch up with a friend and check out the new cafe, but they were cut off by the slow service. Despite the issues, everyone agreed that the coffee was legit. During some downtime, the staff finally got it and fixed the machine. They even offered a freebie to make up for the delay. The owner quickly realized that running a cafe isn't always crystal clear, but with some patience and practice, things would eventually run smoothly. Sarah was about to get into a new project at work. It was a big deal for her, and she couldn't help but have butterflies in her stomach. The project was important, and there was no room to cut corners. Her boss brought up the fact that the client was very particular, so they needed to get the ball rolling on the dot and make sure everything was perfect. Sarah knew she was a bit rusty since she hadn't worked on such a big project in a while, but she was determined to do her best. As the meeting went on, someone spotted a potential issue. It was a touchy subject because fixing it would be pricey. Sarah's coworker suggested it might be a one-off problem, but Sarah didn't want to take any chances. Despite all the pressure, Sarah pretty much stayed calm and focused. The only thing that bugged her was the thought of making a mistake. But in the end, the project went smoothly and the client was happy. Sarah realized that while it was tough, getting back into the swing of things was worth it. Mark decided to start his day bright and early to work on a big presentation. He knew it was going to be in your face, full of bold ideas. The day before, his colleague Lisa had promised to help him, but she was a bit old school and didn't like flashy presentations. Mark was nervous, but he didn't want to get his hopes up too much. Just as he was getting into it, his phone rang. Lisa had given him a buzz to say she was running late because her car broke down. She needed Mark to bail her out by picking her up. The office was packed when they finally arrived, and Mark was struggling to get his head around how to make the presentation appeal to everyone. Lisa suggested they cut to the chase and focus on the key points, but she also flagged a couple of slides that might be too much for their boss, who was known for being old school. Feeling the pressure, Mark knew he had to come clean with Lisa about his doubts. He admitted he was worried the presentation might be too bold. Lisa appreciated his honesty and assured him it was better to be upfront than to do something behind someone's back. When the time came to present, everything went well, but the boss didn't love the flashy parts. Even though it was a bit of a downer, Mark was glad they had kept the focus on the main points thanks to Lisa's help. Bright and early, on a low-key morning, Sarah got a buzz from her boss asking her to work on an important presentation. It was a big deal, and Sarah had butterflies in her stomach just thinking about it. She knew she couldn't cut corners this time. The project was for an old-school client who liked things in black and white, so Sarah didn't want to do anything too in-your-face. However, the boss told her not to worry and cut to the chase. Just get the ball rolling and grab the client's attention. Sarah was worried because her design skills were a bit rusty, and she had a touchy subject to address in the presentation. She needed to flag a potential issue that might bug the client. Knowing this could be a downer, she was careful to bring it up gently. Despite her concerns, Sarah got into the project and began working hard. She needed to get her head around the client's preferences, so she checked out some examples of their past work. The client's style was pretty much crystal clear, simple, with no gray areas. As the deadline approached, Sarah knew she couldn't slack off. Her team was relying on her, but the pressure was getting intense. At one point, she spotted a major error that could have been a disaster. Luckily, she fixed it just on the dot. On the day of the presentation, the conference room was packed. Sarah was hyped, but also nervous, worried about what might happen if something went wrong. Just before starting, she saw her boss and whispered, "If I mess up, will you bail me out?" He smiled and reassured her. The presentation went well at first, but then came the tricky part. Sarah had to explain the pricey solution to the problem she had flagged. The client's reaction was tense. This was no one-off issue, and Sarah had to come clean about the risks. The room was silent. It felt like everyone was about to judge her. But instead of getting mad, the client smiled. "Thank you for being honest," they said. "We appreciate your legit concern." The relief was overwhelming. Sarah had worried for nothing. This big deal had turned out fine. Later, she was about to slack off and enjoy some downtime when her boss asked her to check out the client's feedback. They had written a glowing review, praising her for not taking shortcuts. Sarah couldn't believe it. What had seemed like an over-the-top effort was exactly what the client wanted. Feeling proud, Sarah knew she was better off being honest and straightforward rather than trying to cut corners. She had learned that sometimes it's okay to feel nervous and unsure as long as you keep moving forward and face challenges head on. Now, she couldn't wait to tackle the next project. This time, she wouldn't need to be bailed out.